Welcome everyone. In this session, we are going to see about fermented beverage, cocoa. Now we'll see about the introduction part. As we all know that cocoa used in day-to-day modern life in confectionery items like dark chocolates, cakes, and beverages like cold coffee, etc. These cocoa trees grow best in the tropical rainforest region. The cocoa trees will have the height of 15 to 25 feet. A single tree will produce 20 to 50 fruits per year. The pods are 10 to 18 cm in diameter, having thick leathery rinds containing 20 to 50 beans inside in the rows. The seeds are embedded in white or pinkish pulp. The side picture it will shows about how the cocoa seed will look like and the entire fruit. Composition of cocoa. Cocoa seed contains 54% fat, that is cocoa butter in the form of oleic acid, stearic acid, palmitic acid, and having 31% carbohydrate in the form of sugar and fiber, 11% protein, that is arginine, glutamine and leucine, 3% polyphenols, that is flavonols, proanthocyanins, and having less than 1% minerals such as magnesium, potassium, copper, iron, etc. Now we'll see about steps involved in processing in detail. I already told you about the harvesting process. Only ripe pods are harvested. Before fermentation process, beans are allowed for pre-fermentation storage for about 3 to 5 days to ensure correct nib acidification. To enhance the pre-fermentation activity inside beans, it facilitates rapid rise in temperature, imparts strong chocolate flavor. Then pod breaking and collection of wet beans. The pods are broken without causing damage to beans. Only good beans are collected. Diseased, germinated and caked beans are discarded. Now we'll see about fermentation and curing. Fermentation has to be carried out within 24 to 48 hours after breaking the cocoa pod. It takes about 5 to 7 days on average and varies according to the species involved in fermentation. The cocoa seeds are of three varieties. One is Forastero. For this variety, the fermentation period is 5 to 7 days. Second variety is Criollo. This Criollo, the fermentation period is 1 to 3 days. And third variety is Trinitario. It is a hybrid variety of both two varieties. The fermentation is responsible for chocolate flavor production and aroma in cocoa, and also it causes external browning of the beans. Cocoa beans do not themselves undergo a fermentation at all. Actually, it is a pulp surrounding the bean which is fermented, while simultaneously the curing process will take place within the beans. Microbial aspects of fermentation. Microorganisms are responsible for the breakdown of the pulp that surround the beans. This results in the death of beans and enables the formation of cocoa flavor precurses. The pulp is an excellent medium for growth of microorganisms since it contains 10 to 15% of sugars. We'll see about the composition of a pulp. The pulp contains water 82 to 87% and sugars of 10 to 15%. The pentosans 2 to 3%, acid 1 to 2% and salts 8 to 10%. Now we'll see about the stages of fermentation. The fermentation takes place in 3 stages: stage 1, stage 2 and stage 3. Stage 1 is anaerobic fermentation. Here the yeast will convert the sugar which present in the pulp into alcohol and carbon dioxide. This stage will take place for about 24 to 48 hours. There will be no air circulation and there is a rise in temperature. pH less than 4, that is acidic pH, and low oxygen content. Bean death on second day occurs due to acetic acid and alcohol penetration inside the bean. Now we will see about the stage 2. Lactic acid bacteria are responsible for stage 2 fermentation. Here the sugars and organic acids are converted into lactic acid. These bacteria are present from the start of fermentation but only become dominant in 48 to 96 hours. Coming to the stage 3 fermentation, the acetic acid bacteria are responsible for this stage. It is also present from the start of fermentation but becomes significant at the end of the process when the aeration increases, as it is of aerobic fermentation. Alcohol, here the alcohol is converted into acetic acid. It is an exothermic reaction as it is releasing the heat. The temperature increases to 50 degrees centigrade. Now we'll see about factors influencing fermentation, that is pod maturity, pod storage, quantity of beans used, quantity of pulp, type of cocoa seeds, duration, the time duration taken for fermentation, seasonal effects and pod diseases. These are all the factors which influencing the fermentation process. Coming to the end point of fermentation, bean color changes to brown, becomes plump and filled with reddish brown exudate. Testa becomes loose, that is outer covering of the bean become loose and detached from the cotyledons. Longitudinal halves of cotyledons show bleached appearance in the center with a brownish ring at the periphery. When 50% of the beans show these signs, the lot of these beans can be taken out for drying process. Next, curing process. Due to high temperature, there will be a release of acid, that is influx of acid, which kills the bean, disrupt the internal structure of the bean. Cocoa beans are composed of white cells and purple cells. White cells contain fats and protein and purple cells contain polyphenols. Due to the disruption, the compounds in the bean get mixed and interact within themselves. The reaction occurs between storage proteins, enzyme and polyphenols, which results in the formation of crucial chocolate flavor precursors. Here the enzymes are proteolytic enzymes, polyphenol oxidase and invertase. The chocolate flavor precursors, the proteins are degraded by enzymes to polypeptides and amino acids and reducing sugar or gets released. So you will get the chocolate flavor. Reduction of astringent and bitter taste, part of polyphenols oxidized into large tannin molecules and part of polyphenols and caffeine 20% diffused and exudated from the bean. After the fermentation and curing process, next step is drying. It is an extended process of fermentation. This process takes place very slow, but there will be a progressive and loss of moisture level in the bean. And this also enhances the loss of astringency and bitter taste, and there will be a loosening of the shell from the bean and moisture content reduced to 6%. The drying may be two types, that is sun drying or fire drying. After drying process, the dried beans are subjected to roasting at 200 degree Fahrenheit to 250 degree Fahrenheit for 1 to 2 hours in order to develop the flavor of the beans. The beans become brown in color and friable, that is brittle. Once the roasting is done, it is subjected to grinding. Heat produced during grinding causes cocoa fat to melt, and the melted fat carries within it the suspension, finely ground particles of cocoa. This is known as cocoa mass, chocolate liquor or bitter chocolate. This mass solidifies at about 30 degrees centigrade. Pressing of nibs, filter pressing to separate out a major part of fat, that is cocoa butter. The amount of fat left in the pressed cake can be varied by the condition of pressing. The pressed cake is used for producing cocoa powder. Once the cocoa processing steps got completed, we will get the end product, cocoa butter and cocoa powder. The cocoa butter is also called theobroma oil, which is a pale yellow, pure, edible vegetable fat. Cocoa powder is the end product of cocoa solid, which are low fat components and are rich in flavonoids. This cocoa powder is used in chocolate preparation, which is typically sweetened. So in this session we have seen about cocoa and its processing. fermentation taking place in two ways, that is anaerobic fermentation first and aerobic fermentation second. After once the fermentation got completed, the beans are subjected to drying, roasting, grinding and pressing. Finally, we are getting cocoa cake and cocoa butter. Cocoa cake is sieved to cocoa powder, which is used in hot beverages, chocolates, cakes, etc. So hope you all got clear information about this cocoa and fermentation and their usage. So thank you for listening with your patience. Thank you once again.